at 9:01 a.m. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, 1 minute over. Erica, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes. So we have Tom DeVee.
Yep.
Lauren Seeley.
I see her.
Okay. Arlene Zortman.
Yes.
Jean Christopher.
Here.
Katie Plum.
Here.
Lisa Gallagher. Here. Tracy DeFrancesco.
Here.
And Kendra Dennis.
Let's go into item 2. Approval of the minutes from October 18th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second. All right. Any discussion or changes? Hearing none, let's vote. Aye for approval?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right. Yeah, she raised her hand. I saw her.
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously. Let's go on to item number 3, public invited to be heard.
Lauren was trying to talk.
Oh, did you?
Are you muted? Because we can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Kendra.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Lauren.
Is this better?
Yeah, we hear you now. Yes.
Okay.
Did you have something to say?
I'm abstaining for voting because I wasn't at the last
Okay, okay, you're speaking. Okay. All right, now on to item 3, public invited to be heard. Don't see anyone from the public. Let's go on to number 4, organizational updates. A is a 2023 budget recap. Are you handling this, Kendra, or is this Carol thing?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
So to kind of give you a breakdown of what was added this year, we did go out for increases for both lodge and park staff. Realize that doesn't affect the tenants because they're currently paying what they can today. So any additional increase we request is basically on HUD unless the tenant increases their income. The lodge's increase was 7.49%, we got approved, and we got approved for 7.2% for the park staff. They originally came back with telling us that they couldn't do more than 5, but what he gave me was stuff that we had to pay for. So I pushed back, asked for an appeal, and they were able to give us more for the lodge, and then they just took that and went with the park staff as well. We do have a 4% rental increase for the Longmont properties, Aspen Meadow Cedars, Aspen Meadow Neighborhood, Briarwood Apartments, Fall River, Village Place. Now realize there's a 4% increase. However, and I'm going to use probably Fall River as my example because they're a newer property, they're probably close to the tax credit rent at this time. So if the tax credit rent doesn't increase 4% in April, then those tenants would receive it at 4%. So 4% is the max, but you could have less depending on your individual circumstance or situation, depending on each tenant. I'm going to share my screen. It's very tiny. But we did kind of look at, we hadn't done any increases, and we took 2018 to the present, and there was probably a 17.5% increase in tax credit. What that meant is that we haven't done any increases, but our costs are increasing. So this is kind of what it looks like. It's going to be probably pretty tiny on your guys' screen.
Oh, I can totally read it.
But that's what, so we kind of did an average this analysis shows, so the yellow right now is the sum of the actual subsidy that's coming in. This is just a property that I took. This is Village Place. And I took certain units and just kind of did an analysis of what we're seeing. The yellow is what we're being paid in subsidy. The gray is what a tenant is paying in actual rent. The orange is the sum of the potential rent, and the blue is what actual tax credit rent is today. So for this one, we're getting over, but we can do that for subsidized units because we could go up to the market rent and not necessarily the tax credit rent. I'm gonna kind of go down to, so the very bottom one, that's a vacant unit. So the vacant unit's tax credit, and we should expect the potential rent to be somewhere at that level when somebody gets put in. But you could have a situation such as this one. I don't know if you can see if you see my arrows, but it's the third from the bottom. And this is what the blue line is, what our tax credit rent is today, but this is where this unit is. And this could be several situations that are going on. It could be that they didn't get put in at the level that they were supposed to, which was happening, and now they're pretty far behind. But to increase them all the way to the top just wouldn't be sustainable for them. So that's another reason why we went from 4%. But that's what you can see in these older properties where we're kind of residing, is that we may not be getting what we can. The second one is the same situation. This is what we're getting. This is our potential rent, but this is what we can get. And this one does have subsidy. What we have found is that with some of the subsidy agencies, this probably isn't ours, but some of the subsidy agents, they weren't going out and asking for market rent. So this potential unit, when it gets recertified, should be able to go up to market rent, but it's not at this time. So do you guys have any questions on that? I mean, I put the whole property in there, but you wouldn't have been able to see it, it's so tiny. So I just picked a few units. This will tell you what bedroom size is, 1, and this is a 50%. This is a 60.
So Kendra, I have a question.
Yeah.
And I know that not everybody is going to be able to afford the actual increase. Are we going to end up putting people out and causing homelessness here, or are we going to be able, how are we going to work that?
Well, I think every situation is individualized, so I think we would have to tackle that on an individual basis. I don't know that we would throw somebody out per se. I mean, Lisa might be able to talk more to how that happens at the property level.
So I think, Arlene's been, when I've been talking to the folks, and we say everything's an individual situation. And so we will evaluate the situations individually. Part of it is when you re-syndicate, or not re-syndicate, when you re-up your lease, you have to give us all your financials anyway.
Right.
And so you're required to pay certain things based on your financials. And the challenge we're having at Village Place is, unfortunately, when they were placing people in there, kind of before we took over, right as we were taking over, they weren't putting people in the appropriate units based on their income qualifications.
Oh, man.
And so that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's especially a problem when you talk about the fact that we have equity investors and other things we need to deal with. And so it may be that we go, here's what you need to do. Obviously we made the decision we're not going to the 17% that we were behind. We're hitting 4 and may have to incrementally stagger into it. But it may be that we go to someone that's having issues and we may start holding some 30, 40% AMI units just managing what we have with the block, Lisa. Third, we may manage what we have at the lower income units and say, here's what you need to pay, here's a place for you, you need to move.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of balancing going on. I don't think, my gut tells me I don't think we'll see a lot of that with 4%. But yeah, it's individual, and actually Village Place is a worse situation.
It's got so many levels too.
Yeah, and for so long people were put in there.
Yeah.
They weren't put in the right units.
Right.
You're looking at a lower rent.
Lower rent,
Yeah.
and they've been there for a long time.
Yeah.
When we look, there's a few maybe here. Spring Creek and Fall River they're in decent shape.
Okay.
Kendra, I'm correct in saying Village Place is their biggest problem.
Yeah, I would say Village Place.
Yeah. So,
I mean, Aspen Meadows Senior has some issues as well.
but not as many, and if they're voucher holders, we may have to start figuring out how we use vouchers too to kind of bridge some of these issues as we're seeing them, but that's going to come up when their leases come up.
Is there, this doesn't sound fair, but then neither does ousting somebody.
Right.
But could one of the options for somebody that is below get Section 8? Is there an option? Would there be an option for that?
They would have to be on the wait list and
Okay.
wait for their turn. So
Okay.
the last, just for your guys' knowledge, the last wait list opening we did at the end of October, we had, 600 people in person. But almost everybody who was local to Longmont got on the list because of the preference. So we had a lot of residents.
So, but really, even though the quick option is for them to move to a 30% apartment, what have you, and I figured, move here. But also the information and giving them the process for getting on the wait list would be part of what.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at all of that. And I think the key is when their lease comes up.
Yeah.
So it's not like in January 1 we're going to have everybody in these units hit us.
Yeah.
They're going to be hitting based on their lease cycle.
Right.
And so we'll have some time to kind of understand and see. I can tell you when we talk about the 4% increase, Arlene's been in nobody's really freaking out about it.
Not yet.
No.
And so I think even if they're 17% behind, the max increase is only going to be 4%.
Right.
So that's helping us manage kind of what you're concerned about.
Yeah.
Obviously, when Kendra and I talked about this and said, if we brought them up where they needed to be, we would be having some serious issues, and we couldn't do that.
And what we did here last year when we re-syndicated, we actually added 5 30% units. So I pulled the income for the whole property and took the 5 lowest people and made their units to 30%. So that it was going to those who needed it the most.
Okay.
So we're looking at that.
We may have to do that in a re-syndication over there.
Even here,
That's what we did here.
Yeah, that's seniors.
Yes, here.
Okay, so
We added 5
because we
30%
didn't
last year.
have 30%.
No, we do now. We have 5 right now.
Yeah,
And
that's
so what
great.
we did is, I literally, me and Sarah pulled the sheet, looked at everybody's income, and we're like, these are the lowest. They don't have a voucher. These are the people we're going to qualify for 30%.
Yeah.
And only those people were notified.
Yeah.
But as those become available, we'll start taking households that are all at 30% and seeing what we can do to help get them to that lower percentage.
Okay.
The other
And then-
thing that we're looking at for Village Place with the resyndication, so it's not an immediate fix to some of this, but we are looking at asking to project base quite a few vouchers. So in addition to those who have the tenant-based vouchers, we're looking at putting project-based vouchers. Obviously that has to be approved by the LHAAB board, but that is definitely just with the level of 30% income individuals in Village Place when we have very little 30% units. That's something that we're planning on implementing with the resyndication. So that as a long-term solution could be helpful.
Very, yeah.
And, you know, I'm not incredibly worried about that. I mean, just because I think there's a lot of ways for us to manage it. And if push comes to shove, we can look at our affordable housing fund, we can look at other things if the numbers lead us there. The numbers are going to lead us based on individuals' incomes. And so I think we're going to be able to manage this. It's not one of the, now if we'd have done 17, I would come in and say, look, we're going to push people out. I'm not incredibly anxious about it. I think there's ways for us to manage it.
And as people's income has increased over the years, their social security, their rent has
Not
increased.
17%.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
But
understandable, but last year was 5 this year it's going to be 8. So 4% is actually lower. I understand.
Go ahead.
I understand.
Go ahead.
So given that we take income to determine what the rent is, and we haven't done that over the last 4 years, 5 years, 4 years.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said. It's just that, a social security amount percentage isn't the same as the rent amount percentage.
Yeah.
And the impact is different because, and we all heard social security went up, 5.8, and Medicare took most of it.
Yeah.
So the income, the usable income, So, but I appreciate what you're saying and I appreciate what you're doing. One other question I had with the 30%, we had home units. I think there were 2 HOME city funded units in Aspen Meadows. I'm assuming those are protected too.
No, they were 50% home. And
They were 50%?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I
then,
think they were 30% in the neighborhood then.
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so part of it is, I think, we've obviously been learning ourselves through the budget, and
Sure.
I think this is what I said to the board, is that I think this is the first budget cycle where we're really comfortable.
Right,
Now we know what the world is, we know where it's going.
right.
I think the message is, this is why you want to incrementally step into rate increases every year. Because it's easier to handle 1 or 2% on an annual basis than it is to handle a 4 or 5%. And so that's why you want to stay pretty much in lockstep with the tax credit rates and all of this, because it's just way too hard.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we'll be evaluating it, but I think we have a lot of tools at our disposal in order to ramp people in there. And I think most of them, it probably won't hit. Most of the leases come later in the year, I think. So it's not going to be a...
Yeah, because a lot of them are in July.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them, the onslaught is July.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, now I know I've attended these meetings and you have explained very, very well to the people what's going to happen. I guess, and I've understood it very well. And I know that you said it's up to 4%. So some of them may actually be at less than 4%.
Mm-hmm.
And you've explained that really well as well. When it comes to the actual time that they sign their lease, some of them may have forgotten what you said at that point. But you have done very well in explaining that over and over at each unit.
Yeah, I mean, when Arlene can attest to you, I think I say this is an individual decision. I say that 10 times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I'm pretty overt of saying you may have 4%, your neighbor may have 1%, and that's okay because of where they're in. Trying, because what ends up happening is somebody goes, my rent only went up 1%, and they're in there, my fortune in there, here we go.
Yeah.
And so what we might want to do is videotape one of these, or videotape a session, and then have it on the website or something, or have it for the residents, where you all can start reminding them as we're moving forward.
Or we add a piece to our recertification letter that we already sent out, because that's when we do the lease, and have that as like a second page. This is what your rent is projected to do, because we're just starting research 120 days ahead of time. So that'll at least give them a 3-4 month warning that this is coming, this is what it's gonna be, and this is why.
And here's, maybe we record one and go, here's where you can go to see what we're saying. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Village Place, you put people in wrong units. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? What are these AMI units?
AMI, basically, so if somebody came to rent and they only had a 60% unit, management at the time was like, there even may have been 30 to 40% AMI, they put them in that 60% unit and just lowered the rent for the unit so that they could afford it.
And AMI is on the designated unit and not the.
Right.
So,
Right.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll have 60, 50, 40, 30.
Right.
And somebody, Katie comes in and she's a 30% AMI person, they don't have anything available. They go, oh, we'll put you in a 60% AMI unit and lower your rent. Well, that's what's creating cash flow issues
Yeah.
and other things. And now, there is a point where you may have to do that. But we need process to really, instead of, and this was an issue we were dealing with at that property. I mean, we were seeing it, but this is a point where if a situation comes up where if we have a 60% AMI unit that's been vacant for 2 months, it may make sense to actually put somebody who's a 40 or 50% in there because you're managing your income into the property. But those decisions have to come up into Kendra, Lisa, and myself and Molly because it works if you're doing it intermittently, but when you do it holistically for the property, which is kind of what we saw, that's a problem.
Yeah, you got those one-offs.
Yeah, because you want to maintain income coming in, but then when you do something like that, you need to mark that position. When you have the 30% AMI unit come available, you move them in it.
I think when Sarah and I looked at it, there's only like 8 or something, 30% units, and we have like 30 households under 30%. So those other 22 people are in units that need to be pulling higher rent, and they're not. So
One of the questions that comes up, because all the one-bedroom apartments in here are the same square foot. And the rumors go crazy that, some people are paying like hundreds of dollars more now than what I've been here 10 years. I'm not paying what they're paying, which I don't feel guilty about. I'm doing what I need to do. But I can understand, it's one of those points where the residents don't quite get it, like I'm gonna get slammed with hundreds of dollars of increase. And that's a little, why is somebody paying and explaining that whole AMI situation, like Arlene said, including that issue about square foot might be another piece, because it isn't based on square foot, it's based on AMI. And that's one of the things that every time I get it, I have to clarify. But
It's all based on the year you moved in, what the
yes.
rental rates were that year, what happened in the subsequent years.
Yeah. But I'm glad to see, the 4% being the top at this point, because basically we could have done 4% for the last 3 years and we wouldn't be this far behind. But we couldn't do it because of lack of information, basically.
And when we were in the board meeting, I know, I think it was Tim indicated that the board did approve a rate increase. We weren't involved in. The board may have approved it, we can't see that they implemented it. So
2018, it looks like it did go in, and then there was some for 2020, but with COVID and everything, it doesn't, across the board, we cannot see where it was rolled out.
It wasn't rolled out.
I think the 2018 was, because we had just stepped in,
So 2020.
2020.
Well, we couldn't, Kendra and I, the numbers before, this would have been right when Jillian was leaving? No, this was before.
This
Because,
was before, yeah.
yeah, because when we got there, I was working with a bunch of the tenants concerning the raise that had just gone into effect.
That was 2020.
Yeah,
So there was, I think,
2018, I think, was the last increase. It's the last increase I got. It was 2018.
Yeah, we
maybe
can't-
that, I was still dealing with
Yeah.
that.
They did it right in March of 2020, and that's
Yeah,
when
it
the
could have
office
been that-
closed, and I think
it
that.
had-
Yeah, we can't, but we can't see it in there, even in fact of 2018. And so, you know, it is what it is. You can't, you know,
Yeah,
you can't look back. You gotta look forward. And I think
Yeah.
we're in a decent spot.
it's all kind of funny.
Sure. Well, I mean, it explains the revenue issues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you can start seeing the death spiral.
right.
So I will move on to the suites. The suites is a little different because they are all RPVB vouchers. And we have to get DOH's approval to increase that vouchers to the market rent. They have not been doing that. We did get approval at the end of 2021 to increase the vouchers to a 0-bedroom would increase to 1,274. So our 1-bedroom, we were getting 1,174, and we got it increased to 1,428. I mean, so we were losing out a lot on the suites, which the suites has a lot of the biggest expenditures, such as security, and their insurance is out the wazoo now. And the 2-bedroom, they didn't really give us an approval for that, so we just kind of did an average of what they were giving us for the 0 to 1 bedroom to move it to 1678. These increases are similar to the Hearthstone and the Lodge, where unless the tenant income increases, they're not affected. It'll be absorbed by the subsidy.
And have these been approved, or we're still waiting for approval?
The approved, the 1274 and the 1428, I don't know why they didn't include the 2-bedroom. I need to take a look at that. One of the 2 bedrooms is probably the manager's unit, but the other 2-bedroom, I don't know if that's an MHP, which still goes through TOH, or they just didn't realize we didn't have 2 bedrooms.
So
we
mental
probably need
health,
to get just some update from TOH on that.
mental health pays the correct amount, right? Or they are supposed to pay the correct amount.
Mental health has agreed to, and you guys correct, I don't know the language that you guys use, but they have agreed to go up to these.
The DOH approved it for both LHAAB and MHP vouchers.
And then Lisa, can you speak, have the notices gone out
For the
to
suites?
the tenants regarding a 4% increase?
No, because we've been educating them at coffee and conversations. And then I figured this month we'll get a notice out after we kind of do that educational piece with coffee and conversations.
When do we have to get that notice out, Kendra? It's 30
I
days.
think it has to be 30 days. So I think we probably, depending on when the coffee and conversations, I think we need to get it out sooner than later.
Yeah, so we could probably get Spring Creek, Fall River. I think we could go ahead and do Village Place because in that meeting we didn't talk about specifics, but we did talk about a rent increase, and then we can back it up.
And I have a meeting today there for coffee and conversations without you. So
Without
I can,
me, yeah.
I can let them know because you did touch on it at the last coffee and
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah, so I think we can.
And ask this is tomorrow.
Am I here?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get them out this week. Because we've already done the lodge in Hearthstone.
Some other new items going in
Hey,
the budget.
hold on, Kendra. Gene has a question.
Okay.
I have a concern, but it may not be a concern anymore. Lisa, you might know. But whenever we had an increase before, it had to be a 60-day notice for Boulder County Housing. Has that changed? If there was somebody on a Boulder County housing voucher,
The voucher holders' rents won't change with this lifetime increase.
oh, okay,
This is those who are paying their rent,
yeah,
their own rent, because the vouchers are separate.
all
They
right.
only pay 30% of their gross income, and
Yeah, all I'm saying is that when we had, effective January 1, blah, 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 we had to let Boulder County know.
the managers do that separately on a separate form when they do their renewals. They have to do a
Okay,
form that goes into each housing authority.
okay, and that, my concern, if we've got somebody in January, yeah.
Those ones have already started, current already working.
All right, awesome, okay, just, one of those nagging little things.
And just so you know, I talked to them about white papering all of these processes so that we have standard operating procedures, and they're building a manual so that last week I was saying if we win the lottery, obviously that didn't happen. But if something occurs and we have transitions, there's literally a manual for somebody to go to and pick it up, so you don't have kind of what we got into where we're like, where's this, what's this?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be packaged up for anyone to come in and just go.
Well, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the certifications are usually done 60 days in advance anyways.
Correct.
So there are some new components in the budget. LHA has added a police component to our budget. We will be contributing a percentage of pay to the City of Longmont's police position, and that's Sarah's position, to help assist with law enforcement needs at our properties, including evictions. I don't know if anybody if you want to elaborate on that, Harold, or if anybody has any questions before I go, like what the increases across the board are.
Yeah, I think just to talk about that, I think what we did is, what we were finding is, we were using Sarah a lot.
Right.
And in many ways we were, Sarah was getting overtime, doing all these things, and I needed to balance it out on the police side. Sorry about that. It's allergies.
Yeah.
So we were balancing it out on police, and so what we did is we put this position. She'll come in. Part of it is to help Lisa with the evictions, because it was getting more and more difficult for me to help Lisa with evictions. There were, after her significant eviction at Fall River, I think the next time we did it, Eric was able to get some time for me to do it. So it's really going to tag team somebody with Lisa in this. It's also to help Molly and I a little bit with some issues that Lisa can't handle because of her workload. And so she also does crime-free multifamily housing. So we're sort of bringing the housing components generally. She'll still work for Zach, but also work for me. And so Zach and I have talked a little bit about this and what we're doing. But what we're going to be able to do is then backfill a position in police so that we can put someone on the streets, maybe bring someone else up to the world that Lisa and Dave Kennedy are in. But Zach and I are working on this, but we were using her so much, it just was, I had to backfill.
Yeah.
And this will give us more regularity and certainty in terms of, what Sarah can do and how she can help us.
So how much of the salary, like percentage-wise, are we going to be providing then?
What was the number that we put in, Lisa?
66,000. Right?
It's like, or not Lisa, Kendra, what was the number?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You don't have to.
I did not have pulled up.
I have $66,693.
That's probably about right. I think it was around, is that just the salary piece?
That I'm just looking at whatever the consultant's law enforcement line item is. That'd be benefits and salary, I'm assuming, right?
It should be, yes.
Alright.
Hold on, let me,
And I think that's about right, because I think it was, the salary was about 50.
let me do this. It's about 70%, and 60%.
So we're gonna get that time dedicated, or is it an as-needed basis?
Dedicated, I'm actually, that's where Zach and I are working to try to find other funds, maybe just fill it completely, and then it becomes.
Yeah, $66,000.
Yeah, so, step one on a police officer is, that would have filled it in 22. In 23, it's 70,632. 32. So in all, it's 93,000. Fully burdened.
Yeah.
And so, 2/3. We've got a third left that we've got to bring in. And so Zach and I are trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And we did it as step one just because we always have step ones over, unfortunately.
Back to you, Kendra.
Okay, so there are increases across the board. What we found with the salary and benefits to retain staffing is moving from anywhere from 6 to 12%. We kept with kind of the city standard where you will at least get a minimum of 6, but your max is 12. We did have a couple of the, I believe it was the maintenance positions that were going over the 12%. But they are going out and they have included us in their survey that they're doing through, what company is it, Harold? Mercer? To kind of get a better idea of exactly, because the problem is that the surveys that we're getting, only like 6 or 7 housing authorities submit to these surveys. So you could have something really high one year and then really low the next. And so it's just not a very good benchmarking. So we've been included in those surveys to see exactly where everybody falls. Utilities are increasing at an average of 5%, and that's across the board. Insurance is increasing. What we did find out, we had our insurance company kind of say, like, for our market, because they hadn't been increasing the amount insured for the businesses, and I found that out last year, so we did increase some of it last year, is that our insurance amounts were a lot lower than what we built it for. What we were finding is that standard practice should be around $200 per square foot, and several of our properties were under that. Village Place was really under that. So we're incrementally increasing them to get them sustainable. If we did have a total loss, we have money coming in. So we do have insurance increasing, and I just found out yesterday that Fall Rivers Loan reached out to Carrie, our insurance agent, and they are wanting the exact same thing that the suites required, which is for our wind and hail coverage, we can't have a deductible over $25,000. So we're gonna have to get another separate insurance quote, which for the suites, that cost about $25,000. So Fall River's gonna have a change to their budget line item for their insurance, based on what they're requiring for the loan. We do have increases due to inflation across the board. I mean, most of what we're seeing is anywhere from 4 to 5% for our third-party subcontractors. And that includes pest, elevator, those type of entities. We did try and add meth reserves where we could, and a capital expenditure reserve. I mean, we have replacement reserves, and those are specifically for stuff that was already in the property when it was built, and we can use those replacement reserves to replace that. But we haven't allowed for any type of capital expenditures if there's any new changes that want to happen. So we want to make make sure we start adding that reserve so that we can take care of this, these items, and the requests from the residents, what they like to see in these properties as well.
So Kendra, I have a question, which kind of goes along with that. Several of the places do not have a meth reserve or capital improvement reserve, and they're places that I'm pretty sure have had meth problems with them. Is that coming out of reserve replacement, or are we just going to eat that somewhere in the budget?
So it's kind of a stepping stone. So you can have a meth unit that just needs cleaned. That's usually not, unless a cleaning wouldn't constitute a replacement reserve because you're not really replacing anything. But it's not necessarily something that we can't ask the investors. Usually we have to send all of our costs to the investors to get approval to take it from the replacement reserve. But for example, let's say you have a unit that needed all kinds of replacement. Well, anything over $5,000 is obviously going to go through insurance. So we would only be out the $5,000 for the deductible. But what we also need to kind of work on is we don't know if they're going to continue with as many meth units as we've seen. I'm sure other housing authorities are seeing the exact same thing, that they may not have that coverage in the future. And then we're going to be at a big loss trying to pay for these meth units forward going, because a lot of the private entities can't get this type of insurance. So they're out. And I know there's been people coming to the Longmont City Council talking about this, private landlords that aren't able to get this type of insurance.
Yeah.
And they're out a lot of money. So we're kind of prepping for that as well.
What did you say the meth deductible was for the insurance?
It's $5,000.
$5,000.
Right? Yeah.
Those would cover us for 2.
Yeah, and usually the cleanings are under 5.
Okay.
So if it's, but if you have 5 units that all need clean, it's going to add up eventually. So if that's not in the budget, we do put some in the budget for that health. I think it's health and safety. But it may not be enough with what we're seeing today.
So with the insurance renewal, did we bring up the the testing of meth on a renewal of the lease?
We wanted to make sure we got binding contracts. We wanted to make sure we got insured before we went that route.
Okay.
They are concerned that we could lose our coverage, and we may have to go out to market. So there's only a few companies that actually do housing authority insurance. And so if we get put out, and I can't remember what they called it, but if we can't get insured by those companies, we have to go out to the other market, and it's going to be a big increase. I know we're going to circle back with the insurance companies, but I think they were somewhat a little leery about what it could end up costing in the beginning, and at what risk are we of losing our insurance.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to add anything, Harold, or?
No, I just think, we gotta work with them and figure it out. Molly and Katie went on a tour of a facility in Denver, and it looks like the company in New Zealand is marketing their meth detectors now. They're marketing their meth detectors. There's actually a few companies in New Zealand, Australia, which is interesting that they're really probably leading the pack in terms of this work. And so with the group in Denver and Molly, I think they were trying to figure out how we can, get either demonstration detectors or get them to come to the U.S. and talk about what they're doing. So they're tamper-proof. It's like a smoke detector, but obviously more complicated.
And it goes in each individual unit?
Yeah, they're $500 per unit, but the reality, they're expensive, but the reality is, you save one full remediation of a unit and you're positive. you know, based on the numbers, and we may look at to the insurance companies and see if they want to split it or do something, but.
I just wanted to mention, I asked our operations manager, Amanda Guthrie, about those. And we were approached by a company, I can't remember if it's the same one or if it's a different one, about putting those in our units. And, you know, she requested a lot of sort of paperwork, like show me how sensitive they are, how they work, and she wanted all this like data backing up the claims before we committed to paying $500 a unit. And they weren't able to give her any of that information, and they weren't willing to do a pilot program either, so that our staff could test the sensitivity. Because if, you know, there's a big difference between, you know, detecting a residual amount and then detecting actual use. And then, you know, she was saying that there was other instances where it was being set off by other substances that weren't meth. And so I would just caution, make sure you're getting whatever proof you need before agreeing to any of that, because we did not have any luck at BCHA with testing out those meth detectors. And this might have been a couple of years ago, but if you want to, Molly, if you want to talk to Amanda about it and get some more backup information and just find out what you should be asking for that we weren't able to get, let me know and I can put you in contact with her.
Yeah, that'd be great. Part of what we may think about doing is buying a couple and seeing if police and could do a controlled test in our evidence area where we do things with hoods to kind of see what would trigger. And again, that's probably more for Sarah to come in and help us with to see. Not to get into a dissertation on that, but the problem is the chemical components can change. And so it's understanding, can it really register all the chemical components?
So with that, we'll move on to the property budgets. So the Aspen Meadows campus, Aspen Meadows Senior Apartments is not having that much of an increase, just due to the type of situations there. This is another unit similar to Village Place. So we weren't able to do a meth reserve or a capital improvement reserve there with all the increases on admin and maintenance and operations. Along with utilities, there just wasn't enough left in the budget to do that. We are able to do it at Aspen Meadows neighborhood, which is a good thing because their reserve is not very big like some of the other properties. And we have a feeling, you know, all the roofs are going to have to be replaced all at once, and we're not going to have enough to probably accomplish that if that's the case. But I also think similar to, so we went out. That was really nice for the Hearthstone Lodge and Village Place, and we kind of got a company to say, here's where each property stands, and here's when you're going to need to replace this. And that's what we don't have for the other properties, but it would be nice to establish that so we know what to budget for if we need to replace the water heaters, or the boilers, or the roofing, or those type of things, to actually have a good maintenance schedule for future budgets. Does anybody have any questions on Aspen campus? So Long River and Spring Creek. Oh, yes.
No, go ahead.
So, you know, they're the same thing. We kind of started a meth and a capital improvement reserve. They're not looking all that bad with the increases. In fact, Spring Creek's looking pretty good on their side. Also realize most of these properties still have developer fees that have to pay in. So having some type of cash at the end of the year. And realize we also don't account for the HDD units. So if there are HDD units in this property, we don't budget for those. It's kind of our cushion per se. And we don't know if those people are going to, if they leave, downtown campus for Village Place and Briarwood. I did small on the Briarwood apartments, but we also, when we refinanced the loan for the Briarwood apartments, we were able to, we financed a little more so we could put a reserve replacement for that property because there was none. So we do have, I think, $30,000 right now in a reserve replacement. And so I'm looking to at least always add to that as well each year. And Village Place, with the increase, we are getting a little more admin expense went down. That is mainly because of probably the but it could be several situations where we had different people budgeted there last year that have different incremental increases this year, and how they're splitting their salary. So this person's salary is being split now because last year I believe we only had somebody at Village Place, and now their admin is being split between both properties because that person is taking on both properties. Whereas I think last year Lisa was taking on Briarwood apartments.
So on the reserve replacement calculation, how are we budgeting for that if we haven't done like reserve studies? What I'm understanding, right? The Lodge and the Hearthstone, you said, were the only ones that had reserve studies. So how are we?
So it's not reserve. So reserve replacement is specific to the agreement with
Oh,
the properties. So it's usually an amount per unit, and depending on, and each property is different. Some of them say, for example, some of them are like $300 per unit for the entire year, and then maybe by the fifth year you increase it 3% every year. So all of these, I have a whole different spreadsheet that tracks.
So it's per the agreement and not necessarily what the needs are of the facility.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's per the agreement. And what we found out in this last with Hearthstone and Lodge, which we probably, with our MOR on it, is we had to submit this form that hadn't been done in forever. And this form actually, not only you can increase your reserves, but you can also increase your management fees, which they haven't done that at all at the Hearthstone and Lodge. And based on the calculation, we should be able to increase those. So that will definitely be an ask for next year. But yeah, reserve replacements, the meth reserve and capital improvement reserve, this is kind of a, let's get it started.
Right.
And we probably need to figure out what the best, based on the property, what the best methodology. And Suites is obviously probably going to have a higher one than others.
Lisa, you said that you were going around with your maintenance folks too to see what is in need in that, or are you going out like long term to see, and dollar wise, how much you're going to need for that sort of thing?
Some of that came into play from the budgets this year, so we did our first one, we have our second one scheduled for this year.
Mm-hmm.
But doing that helped us build what we need on each of the properties. Basically, we went through storages, saw what we had. A lot of our grounds need a lot of curb appeal work done, and so we were able to start getting quotes, start putting those into the budgets between end of this year, beginning of next year to get some of that stuff covered.
But you were looking at like roofing also.
Yes, I was on roofs, I was
paint and everything
yes,
else.
painting property windows, taking some of these capital needs assessments we had done into play too, and it really helped Kendra and I with these budgets this year.
And are you comparing that to what the reserve replacement is, or just to see if we're going to be close, or are we underfunded, overfunded?
Well, the reserve replacements, we can only request to use funds from.
Right. Yes.
So, but the capital improvement reserve is what we're building based on some of those
Some
costs.
of that. Okay. That won't be covered by the reserve replacement.
Correct, because if we're adding, example, we want to take the mulch out and put rock down.
Right.
Since we're not replacing with the same thing, we can't use our reserve replacement, so capital would come into play for that.
Okay.
But some of those, from what you're saying, I think, and Lisa, we probably need to maybe figure out a program. I don't know if there's a software program so that we have that, when does the roof need to replace, when is this, and then we can get those scheduled out, because some of those are with reserve replacements, so I see where you're coming, Tom.
Yeah.
Should see exactly, are we gonna have, and that's what this company did as well, is like, here's what you're gonna need by this point.
Yeah, are we gonna have enough reserve replacement built up to support that, or do we, it's gonna have to come out of other needs?
And
So
I,
I do think that's a tool that the staff might need, and maybe we need to look in, and I don't know if there's a Microsoft product, or if there's something where they can actually build, a product or project-based, schedule.
I do have some of this, Kendra, actually on a spreadsheet that Cameron was working on from the city when I started, and we've added some things to it that they kind of gave me a lifespan of each of the items, so we may be able to pull from that and work on that.
And then we just do a fair market value of some of the, to purchase it, is what you need to,
Yeah, it'd be nice to have something like that developed in 2023, so that when we go into the 2024 budget, we know what exactly is going to need replaced and budget for that.
One thing we have been using is within Teams, which I don't know if LHA is using Teams as well, but you can create sort of what's the word I want to use, not a manifest. Sorry, this is my biggest problem this week after being sick for a week straight, is that I can't think. A list of everything that you have, and things that you need to purchase. And so that when you purchase, let's say you buy a case of light bulbs, and you always have 2 cases of reserves. Once you say that you've purchased one, it should automatically send an alert to somebody to order a new one. That might be a useful tool without having to purchase anything, to track what actual supplies and goods we have for the maintenance team, to keep a nice reserve of stuff. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's an inventory, and I think Yardi.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yardi has an inventory system that I believe we have. We have the module. I don't think we're using it.
Because I wonder if maybe then there's a services piece that goes with that you guys can use without having to, purchase a new software or a spreadsheet. Because if you can automate it, then it's so much easier.
Well, and for that, yes, but it's more like when is the roof being replaced, when is it's those things that I don't know that it would track. But it might, it has maintenance and it has work orders. I just don't think we've dove into all of the capabilities that Yardi could offer. Because I did see that they do credit card payments in it. But I think we probably have to have it set up.
But I think there is a capital improvement section in the maintenance too.
Oh,
Just have to,
that would
yeah.
be awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
we need to check that out
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, the Hofer campus, as you can see, no MEF or capital reserve because they pretty much make us budget to the penny. So we're at zero balance at the end of the year for those properties. But at least we did get, because they weren't asking for increases in prior years, we were able to get, 7% on these properties, which they usually don't allow more than 4%. So probably 4% is going to be our increase next year, since we've gotten some pretty hefty increases in the last couple of years. And then the Suites campus is looking, good. I do, in the Suites campus, we budget a pretty high dollar for safety and remediation. So I think it's $18,000. So I didn't increase that MEF reserve right now. We'll get an account set up so we can start it. And then probably in 2023, we need to analyze all these properties and see exactly what needs to be put in that MEF reserve on a per unit basis. For the Housing Choice Voucher Program, there's nothing really changing there. They do have us with a slight increase, but I think they do that every year based on the 2-year tool. They give us a slight increase based on things that are happy and knowing that there's always gonna be an increase. And I'm sure they're seeing inflation as well with the costs that are being submitted. But we should be okay there. We are budgeting, Tracy, the 2 housing specialists, our accounting team is budgeted there, as well as our new administrative, assistant, that's at the front desk there. So those are being budgeted through the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Any questions there?
I don't see.
And then our SRO program is pretty tight, similar to our Hearthstone and our large budgets. We had been over budgeting in the past by quite a bit, and what happens with that is that you don't get paid for the first 4 or 5 months, because HUD's taking back the money that you got overpaid in the prior year. So we're trying to get that budget a little closer, so we're not having to always pay back, and our cash is pretty consistent coming in. So this is for the in between. And they also have the opportunity to convert to a LHAAB program as well, if we want to see about that in the future. And then you have 615 Main and Briarwood office. These are both properties that are pretty tight, especially Briarwood office with the refinancing. We do pay some utilities, but we also get, you're going to see a utility expense for Briarwood office, but those expenses are billed back 40%. So we pay 60% for the apartments and 40% for the office, so it's billed back and posted to revenue. And then 615 Main, which is, both these properties are looking to be sold, but I think we're still in the process of reviewing that and seeing what that would be.
And they'll be sold at market value, right?
What's that?
They'll be sold.
We'll do appraisals and go through that, so yeah. Unless the board or somebody goes, just because of whatever they're doing, but yeah, we'll have to go through and do all the appraisals. I think we have to do that anyway because of all the rules,
So the LHA general fund, we are having to use fund balance. We have to use fund balance every year. The other revenue of $521,000, realize that is the management fees that are coming in based on the revenue projection. We get those off of gross receipts received. So as long as we're collecting, we get a percentage of that paid back to us. And then you have $150,000 of corporate management fees that are actually paid in by LHTC. So once LHTC is dissolved, we will not have those funds coming in, and we would probably have to have more fund balance needed unless we can find some other revenue that's a continued revenue that comes in to support the admin that's needed. Our admin expense has been running around $800,000, and that's been pretty standard. And it's been pretty standard that we've had to do about $400,000 of fund balance. Realize our fund balance in the LHA general fund right now is at about $700,000. So using this fund balance would be just $3, but we should hopefully be seeing some developer fees coming in from AMSA this year. Once it's dissolved, once LHTC is dissolved, we would probably be seeing Fall Rivers developer fees coming in, but we're not seeing any developer fees from the Chrisman project until 2024. So we should be getting our fund balance up by 2024 with the Chrisman developer fees, but we need to keep the development going or find another consistent revenue revenue stream coming in.
Kendra, did you see my email on, there was a small portion of the paid developer fee that we should have gotten for Christmas. Did we get that? I think I sent you an email, but I didn't know if we.
So you mean when they closed?
Yeah, I know we got paid like the special limited partner fee, but there was also another chunk of the paid developer fee that we should have gotten paid that we didn't directly from the title company.
Well, and that was in 2022. That's not in 2023.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure we got it.
Yeah, I think it was the $44,000.
Okay.
Yeah, we did get that. But none coming in 2023. So we did give us a little cushion of fund balance, so that we would have some net income in case we ran into some situations. But hopefully we can stay within that budget for having additional situations.
So that's what it is. But the reason why you have that income is just for the cushion.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just for the cushion.
Okay. All right.
And I'll report and this is similar to LHDC, as you'll see when we go through the financial. Pretty much we're always using fund balance for them at the moment, so I'll kind of show how much fund balance we've had to use for that property, and I do the same thing for this, if it comes down to it.
And Kendra, so on that point, Kendra did talk about, I think the fact that we, for HCD voucher holders, we don't budget the full amount for those individuals because they're portable. That's also a cushion for us in terms of the operating revenue, because that typically makes up. So why we don't have pure financial, why we're not in the negative in some properties is because of the vouchers that we're bringing in, so they're overcoming that. So.
Usually almost every investor report says, here's why we're over in revenue, and here's why we're over in management expenses, or management fees, because our revenue is increased, so is our management fees. It's based off a percentage of the gross receipts we receive. For the LHDC general fund, we are using full fund balance because most of what the $50 is probably, that's not calculated, right? That should be a total. Is probably interest that comes in, but the admin expense is literally a majority of the corporate management fees they pay to LHA. And then it's going to have also some audit expense because they have their own audits. LHBC does as well. So that's the majority of what those admin expenses are.
So I know you talk about this dissolving. Is there any idea of when this is going to happen?
LHDC?
The attorney's working on the approvals right now. Part of it, we have to chat about Village Place because Village Place is owned by LHDC, and moving that around before the resyndication is a little sticky.
So we're going to do the resyndication, and the resyndication of that will be what moves it over into LHA, simply similar to what we did here.
Okay.
So then that leaves Spring Creek, Fall River, the attorney's working on Lodge on Hearthstone, that's still working with the HUD and the 202. We kind of had to get through this audit that we had with HUD to, I guess, have them have the confidence that we could operate it. And I think have we gotten a letter yet?
No, we should be any day now.
But when Molly and I met with the guy that was leading the audit, we did a lot better than we did before on that Lodge Hearthstone. Actually, he told us in that so we had like a fail when we first took it over. And he said the only reason you got points is because the building was in good shape. If you would have had issues with the building, you probably wouldn't have had any points. That's how bad it was. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're going to be much better, and I think that'll help us. And then that only leaves think that's it, right?
There's a Hoverland too.
So that's the one
That
that,
easy enough.
that's the one that we're gonna talk about on the development project, and that'll convert over.
That one's an easy one.
That's an easy one, yeah. So, time issues are gonna be HUD, and it's gonna be the re-syndication of Village Place.
Yeah, I think Village Place will be, that was a question I had for you eventually, but that'll be the longest. So that's talking about LIHTC closing the end of next year. So everything else could happen well before that, but Village Place is kind of the
And
outlier.
then we're just waiting for that one and then
Yeah.
pull the trigger.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I have to leave at 10:30.
Yeah, this
So
ends
can
at 10:30, so we're gonna have to,
I wanted to move up the fraud thing so I could.
Well, I just have one more, which is the vacant land properties,
Mhm.
and that's just overland and sunset land. Sunset land don't really have any revenue expenditures. For overland, which is owned by LHDC at the moment, they do have to use some of their fund balance to pay for not only the HOA fees that they incur, they have the financing with the City of Longmont, and then they also have landscaping in the summer that vacant land has to be mowed, weeds have to be mowed. So that's kind of what's going on there. So the sooner we develop on overland and have some revenue, we won't be at fund balance that we're paying.
I did have one question so it looks like on the summary page, the vacancies, are we using 96% on that?
Yes.
Have we been at 96 or it looks like we're averaging about 92, 93%?
Right now, earlier this
Yeah.
year we were.
We were at that? Okay, so, okay. Alright, go to 4B, LHA Advisory Board Recruitment.
So this one Molly asked me to speak on. As you all know, the application process opened on October 19th and will close on November 30th. And the LHA Board of Commissioners need to do their deliberations on December 10th. So we need to have this board have their recommendations in by December 6th, which is a Tuesday. Currently there's 9 applicants and the interviews either need to happen on Thursday, December 1st, Friday, December 2nd, or Monday, December 5th. So I guess what would you guys like to schedule in with Molly and LHA staff to do those interviews?
So it's me and Jean, right?
Correct.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
How about Monday and Friday?
So Friday would have to be in the afternoon,
Okay.
the 2nd.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna be gone that next week,
Oh, so we need to do them on Friday.
or Thursday to Friday.
Okay.
Thursday and Friday.
Thursday morning and Friday afternoon? What?
but I was gonna tell her, Lonnie from Cornerstone Lending, was trying to find the application, so
I will.
somebody sent it to him and then he couldn't find it. I couldn't find it, so.
So Thursday, as you know, I'm okay Thursday, but Friday I wouldn't be available until after 2. So maybe Thursday would be,
Thursday.
I don't know,
would be
that's, gosh, if we've already got 9, that's gonna be about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, and they will be recorded.
good. Oh, good.
So-
Okay.
So I could definitely schedule for both. I could do Thursday for a longer period of time and then just maybe the last couple for Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Mhm.
Okay, perfect.
And you're doing it electronically or are we doing face to face?
I actually prefer face to face.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
what
gonna
it
like
is.
to
As long as we can.
see
Yeah.
where are we gonna have them? Down at the city or where?
Really wherever you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're trying to push the interviews into certain days, I would have an option for both, because if somebody has a work issue, then that could be a problem. And if you're gonna do both in person or that, I would do it either in my conference room or the purchasing conference room, where we can have you sit up and we have people there to help with technology.
Yeah, and I like it not being on one of the campuses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, because then those conference room have a camera and everything, and it's pretty easy to work.
Good.
Okay.
Good, let's go on to the next one. Well, let's just go down to the tenant fraud policy, number 6.
So this policy, as, I don't know if you recall, but in the admin plan, there was a section on fraud. And that was the policy that was put into the admin plan. This policy is more for the staff, for the community managers, and the process of what we do when we find suspected. So it's just we wanted to make sure that all the staff knew that we're responsible for detecting fraud, and that there's steps that we need to take to verify it, and then what happens after it's verified. Ultimately, again, in the admin plan, it states that one of the consequences could be that we turn it over to the police department for investigation. And this just says the whole thing, and it does state about confidentiality, what LHA staff needs to do to keep things confidential.
It really just comes down to the executive director deciding.
Making the decision, especially with if we're going to send it to the police, then I think it's really the executive director that needs to direct staff to do that.
Any questions on that? Where do we document then if we suspect anything? Is there a place in Yardi or in the file that we're
So,
in? Like if we want to report it or what the actions are?
So most of the ones that we have found so far, we've entered into promissory notes. And they're paying on a monthly, and that's set up to the accounting. And that's tracked somewhat in Yardi, but because the LHA can keep 50% of the payment, and then the rest has to be fraud, it has to be sent back to HUD. So that's done through accounting. There are 2, one that has already been sent over. She's the one that was evicted from Suites, and there was a bunch of meth down there. So there's going to be other things, but there was some fraud under the project-based voucher program, and that was sent over to the police department, and then we've got one other one that we're.
Yeah, I think so.
And these weren't just unreported income; it was forging documents from the courts or forging documents from a doctor.
So, like on the one, so Tracy comes and goes, here's what's going on. And you go, yeah, we need to push this over. The one Eric and I need to finish is I had Erica go in and basically take everything Tracy did, all the other issues, kind of line it out, and just kind of go through it, and then via letter, we're going to go, here's my decision, here's this, and we're turning this over.
Yeah.
And that shows that we have to notify them that they all were.
So if charges are filed, then that follows these people throughout.
So another step that I do is in PIT. So we have to run a background, and it's through a government. It's a HUD secured system, and so we put in the applicant's social security number, and we get all of the IRS information on that. So what I do is I also go into that system and I'll say that they owe us money. And that stops them from getting any other assistance anyplace. So all housing authorities have to go into that system and pull those routers. And it comes up with their social security.
Yeah, that's our obligation to HUD in these processes. And so they're already in the system. The criminal pieces, it's also our obligation on HUD to, anytime we see fraud, to turn it over. And if we don't do it, and then they find that they've committed fraud in other agencies, and then they come to us and go, well, did you see it? And we go, yeah, I mean, wait, then we're in trouble. So, I mean, it's generally HUD, I was telling them, I mean, I had, on the CDBG side of my last community, a staff member in a federal court case for about 2 weeks. Fortunately for us, he was the one that actually found it. And what they ended up finding is that the individual defrauded multiple governmental agencies on federal funds that was related to Katrina. And that number got big in a hurry, and that person got prison time. So, yeah, that's our obligation, and we don't really have a choice.
And it doesn't, I don't report any like damages or anything from the properties. It's just all under the HCB. I think we also do that under the 202, since those are
Number 5, development project updates.
Yeah, so Molly asked me to come for that, since she had vacation. I don't know how much in depth you guys want me to go, but Zinnia is they're doing their plat and site submittal with the city. They are going tonight to City Council to get 100% fee waivers. So that they were administratively approved the 50% just based upon the project. And then in order to get more, they have to get that approval. So that will be determined tonight. But other than that, that project's moving forward as planned. They hope to close financial closing and start construction in the late spring, early summer, so like May, June.
The land closes.
They're hoping to buy the land from us before the end of the year. So they had to wait, obviously, for the plat to be redone because they can't buy land that doesn't have bound. They had to separate it before they buy it. So yeah, they plan to buy that before the end of the year. And then they'll pay back the city for their loan that they took out for that. Chrisman, nothing really to update there. That's going as planned under construction. Hover, we put out the RFP for a development partner team and had really good responses. We had 9 responses and we interviewed 4. And we did select Penrose alongside their architect and general contractor that they recommended. So we just informed them of that yesterday. And so, the next step with that is kind of just getting a meeting and talking about next steps and, what makes sense. So, but as far as like selecting somebody and getting that going, I think is a good first step. So that's where that one is. Village Place, lots going on there. We just put out the RFP for the architect, which is very timely. We hope to submit to CHAPA for the 4% application in the spring, and we really need the architect on board ASAP. So we hope to have them selected before Christmas. But yeah, that's really timely. We're working on the CNA still, which is important for the architect to see. So it's kind of all moving at the same time. But working with Sarah on all the things that we'll need for the application. We talked a little bit about the set-aside issue. What we're looking at is, like I said, I think we've talked about like 19 project-based vouchers in addition to the couple of housing choice vouchers that are already in the building. There's a process to go through with that. But then reducing the amount of 60% units, because there is quite a few there now, so reducing those and turning those into 50% units to kind of better match the population, and then also the project-based vouchers will really help out with that issue there. And then getting WNC out, we did have good progress there. We thought we were going to have to find a third party to do a right of first refusal trigger. They're going to let us buy the interest, which is much less complicated. And I know I talked to Lauren about Boulder Housing Partners being able to do that, and they did consider that. So thankful for that, but also thankful we don't need it because it's much easier for us to just buy the interest. So hopefully they'll be out of the deal by the end of the year, January. Is kind of the hopeful. We want them out before we go into the 4% application. So, and that's quick because I know we don't have a lot of time yet. I can touch on anything else if you want.
Anything on 7, resident quality of life? Alright, 8, LHA report. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention, Molly, I know I had offered to kind of put together sort of a analysis of the information that you had, and I just want to let you know I'm almost done doing that. I had to take a couple weeks off because of some conferences and a week of being sick, but I should have that to you by the end of the week.
Yeah, I think on the quality of life, just the best thing that is working well.
It is, yeah, and I should have spoken up immediately, but I want to acknowledge specifically Arlene and Harold and Lisa for pulling this together so fast. And it was amazing. And, you know, Thursday we'll have our second trip. I understand 9 people have signed up. The fact that you guys pulled the team together and did it and worked with it was awesome. And I just appreciate not only that it's done, but you did it so smoothly and quickly. It's hard to do that in this environment, and I'm very grateful. And obviously, a lot of people here are too.
I'll pass it on to Alberto and Tim Hull because they actually did the contracting work.
And that's the
did
grunt work.
that. That was the piece. We thought we were going to have a purchasing issue. We didn't, and so
Awesome.
yeah, so they did a good job.
Yeah, please pass it on. Because, a lot of people here are grateful.
And I actually rode it the first time, which was very, very exciting. I'm going to go again this week, as long as there's room.
Well, they said they got us a 20 passenger bus instead of the 12 one that we originally promised. So.
And that has made a really great difference. So.
And the inclusion of the container bags.
And I have more of
It's
those.
just awesome.
So
Awesome, girl.
I got 6 more of those because that's what we. Luckily, we didn't have to completely reinvent the wheel because me and Corinne have worked similar programs in Las Vegas. So we took our processes from before, met with Via, kind of just implemented some of their stuff, and the canvas bags I think work perfectly and they're easily replaceable. They don't take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Awesome.
Alright, number 8, LHA report, the update on operations occupancy report.
Not a lot of changes. We took a couple less units that are done off, added a couple more. Occupancy is holding strong. We do have waitlist open, so that is helping. In my notes, you'll see that we've rented a couple of the units. We've had move-ins even from the time of this report at the end of the month to today. We had a move-in yesterday. We're at the suite, so we are moving through and getting these units reoccupied. It's been a slow turn of units waiting on appliances, robbing Peter to pay Paul, taking a unit out of a down unit to have an occupied unit to have a fridge or a stove, buying floor models, whatever we can do to get through. But a lot of these units are now coming together. We're getting our parts in. These units, I'm walking with maintenance when I'm doing these quarterly walks, checking the units, quality control. So these units are getting done and they're getting done the right way.
The only thing, and I think I said this to Kendra, I may have sent it to you too, is when we start seeing that a stove is not going to be available for 3 months, because that's the reality. But let's say there's one that's a step above that's available now. We're going to need to start doing some financial calculations to go, what are we, just getting the least expensive stove may not be the right answer if you can't get them for 3 months. So we're gonna have to start being really creative and looking at the financial analysis on, does it make more sense to buy one for $400 more because we're gonna be able to recoup that money faster than what we're losing by having the unit vacant.
And what we'll do is when we do the Village Place re-syndication, we did it with Aspen Meadows. We stored 10 fridges, which really helped out. We used all those 10 fridges, but we did hoard back some stuff and didn't let them be recycled. So we'll do it again with fridges, stoves, microwaves, stuff like that. So we have them on hand just in case this happens again. For property updates, the Via Shuttle, like I said, going great. A lot of good feedback from the residents who have participated. Talked to some Village Place residents who did not partake in the first one, but they're planning to go this week because this week is the Walmart, and that's what everybody was like. They really want to get to those Walmarts. And we are having a third shuttle in December for a special shopping trip for them.
And in terms of like evictions and that, is it 2 a week?
We
Or
are
is
actually,
it more now?
no,
Okay.
we're only allowed 2, but we haven't had any for a few weeks.
Okay.
We are seeing that slow down. We are working with a few right now with ERAP, which is the rental assistance, trying to get them rental assistance so we don't have to go to eviction. So we have those on the back burner if they cannot get funds. But we're down to just a handful owing multiple months of rent. Nothing in the thousands like we were seeing earlier this year. I think we have 2 pending nuisance cases at 2 different properties, but the residents have kind of quieted down, not causing an issue, so those are on the back burner too. But nothing on my court schedule for the rest of the year so far. So that has really slowed down. No evictions pending either. All granted evictions have taken place. So.
Any other questions on that? For property updates? All right. Jump to age receivables.
You're on mute.
There we go.
That's me. I was saying that's me, but you couldn't hear me. So I did a little differently this time. I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of, based on where our receivables are, how many of those are past due tenants, and what is their past due. So out of the $122,000 that's due, 108 of them is from past due tenants that the property managers are working on getting not only the first letter sent, but the second letter. The second letter should be going out at the beginning of December. And then we have a collection agency in place. We'll be using BC Services. The bad news that we found out about the collection agency is we were kind of hoping that turning these people over would put something on their credit, and that is not the case. Apparently credit agencies are not allowing for fees or fines to be reported through their agencies, which is a majority of what our costs are. We might be able to if they have past rent, but I think it has to be over $500. So even though we will be sending these to collections, it's not going to do, and it's probably what we're also seeing in our own properties, where you pull a credit report and it won't show this information unless you do a judgment, and then you have to make sure that you act on that judgment as well. They will also do an assessment, so this collection agency will do an assessment and say, can this person pay? If this person can't pay, can't proceed to the next level, so we may end up writing these off. So, and with our properties being low income, they may not be able to establish that these individuals would be able to pay these amounts back, and therefore it wouldn't go to litigation. If it goes to litigation, what happens is they will pay all the upfront costs, all the lawyer costs, all the filing fees, all of that. But when it goes to court, any money that comes back gets paid to them first to pay back those fees, and then we wouldn't see anything past that. So that's kind of where we're at. We will begin to turn the 25% of what they collect. So whatever they collect, we would see 75%, they would see 25%. And then we would end up writing that other 25% off. So that's kind of where it stands. Do you guys have any questions on that?
So you mentioned that it's fees or fines. I mean, this is are a lot of these that's out there on receivables, is it like damage to the units that we're trying to collect, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It's damage. Because we don't get a really large security deposit, it's usually $500. That will either take care of the past due rent, or a lot of it's cleaning and meth is what these large costs are.
So like the Aspen Meadows neighborhood over 90 is $44,108. Is that?
That's the meth.
Is that just one unit mainly, or?
Well, there's 10 past due clients, so the majority of that balance is yes from that, but there are a couple others in there that make up that balance. So 46 is what's due, but there's 10 past due tenants that have balances. They could be small, they could be less.
Yep.
And we'll take a look at, if it's even worth. I'm working on the write-off individuals. We have some that have $6 things on that. A majority of the lower dollars that we may just write off.
Okay. There we go. Let's go on to then the property financials. Oh, I think you're on mute. No? Yeah? Yes. There you go.
Did I click a button?
You were just talking.
Don't touch my keyboard. So I did highlight, we are over on every single budget for vacancies, and some of them are pretty quite over, and this is only the third quarter, so we still have the fourth quarter to go. So, and I know there's problems with getting appliances and getting housed. I do think now that I have kind of a ad hoc report that I can pull down, we probably need to start looking at those vacancies and monitoring them closer to know, are they ready to flip, are they ready to go over, and kind of start documenting what problems we're having. Can we not house it because there is nobody? Like nobody on the wait list can get off, or they have 6 months. And then what our plan is after that. What do we go to next? What waiting list do we go to next? So we do need to probably sit down and figure out a better way to fine tune how we can manage each one of those units. There is some overage on Aspen Meadows neighborhood that is obviously due to the insurance. Anything that's over in those, and the suites actually isn't over, but they actually have insurance repairs as well. The reason they're not over is because we haven't had security there for a while. So security was a big expense for the suites, but you don't see it there yet because we haven't incurred those costs. For the lodge, we are getting close. We're actually under our net income on that one, but we did find that it may change come the next report because we did find that I can't even think of the word. The people that we went out to get the actual to start doing the RAD conversion and do the Kate, what is it called?
Sorry, say that again?
For the conversion, the evaluation we had done for the Hearthstone and the Lodge.
The PCNA.
Anyways, the next time we got charged to them, and actually LHDC was supposed to pay for that, so we are reimbursing the Lodge money for that, so that'll probably bring us up in balance. Other than that, everything's, pretty good as far as, I did review a lot of what Lisa said for the budgets in 2023, and reviewed the 2022 to say, hey, go forward with purchasing these items in 2022 because we have some extra funds there right now we haven't spent in certain areas. So, you know, if you need a key machine, get a key machine. If you need you know, there was actually I think it's Fall River, we budgeted for a copier, but they never got a copier. So, I have you know, something out to our contact that we're using for the city's copiers now, to get them a copier in place. Copier, scanner, printer, type of thing. Does anybody have questions?
No, I think you answered them all.
And then, you know what, then the vouchers, you know, we're staying pretty steady around our total vouchers and our total count, but we just can't seem to get to that 420 number. Like, we have it, we have people that have issued vouchers, but we can't ever get to that number. We have people coming off. You know, I know they're proactively, and now we have another big wait list to start working through, but I know they sent like 20, 25 letters, and like only maybe 6 people responded. So, and that was off our old wait list, not the new wait list where the people actually came in and had to be, you know, Longmont specific. So I don't know if Tracy's probably already left, but we're trying to get there. It's a little hard. People can't find places. But we did, and I don't know if that was in this one or in the last one, but we did have the commissioners approve for us to go to 105% of market. So we will start doing that, and what that means is we were going at 100% market rent, but we can go to 105 to maybe assist more families with being able to voucher out within our community. And that just happened this last council meeting. So.
That's wonderful.
So we just actually have people out there who are not really willing to do the voucher process as far as the public goes?
Yeah, you know, some of them may have already left. Some of them, you know, with our last wait list, we had a lot of out-of-staters, you know, and they may not have, and I can't speak to who was all reached out to, but I know that 200, we exhausted that 200, and so we're now looking on the new list.
Are you talking about properties?
Homeowners, are they just not willing to do this? I mean, it's a guaranteed income, but to a certain point.
I think there's some that are, you know, right now is an interesting time because when interest rates tend to go up, what you tend to see is more people moving into the rental world versus purchasing homes. So I think that's a pressure that's impacting vouchers right now, in that rental rates are going up because there's high demand. And so typically, you know, I think what we were seeing a year or so, or what we were seeing about a year ago, is more people were interested in it because the vacancy rates were lower. And you know, I think it'll be interesting to see when we get more of these units coming online and what that does to the overall vacancy rate in the community, and does that create more interest. I mean, the world's wacky right now, and it's kind of hard to understand. You know, we've talked about getting people into age-restricted units and the impact of the economy and inflation and what that's having. So I think you have all of these factors in play to where someone may find something, but then because of the inflation and the cost of living in Colorado, they may choose to, I want to go somewhere else. I mean, there's so many different variables in play that it's hard to really pinpoint right now, at least in my mind.
Well, and another thing we probably need to circle back with, and I'm going to talk with Tracy in the next couple of weeks, is because we can't seem to get over the 400 mark, even though we have people issued vouchers, they just can't find stuff, or they're getting extensions, is that we take in the port-ins. We make those our vouchers, so we can voucher up. So we currently have 10 vouchers that are pulling vouchers right now, that we could absorb. And those would become our vouchers and we would report them under us. So I think we need to probably come to that determination that we need to probably absorb those vouchers. But I want to talk to Tracy to make sure she hasn't reached out to a bunch of new people and they're going gung ho and they're able to voucher up.
Okay.
Alright, let's go to the next item, update from Executive Director.
I think I've covered most of my issues in this conversation, so I'm good.
Yep.
And I've got a meeting that I've got to head to.
Yep. Any other business?
Did we talk last time about extending this to 11 o'clock?
Yeah.
Are we going to do that,
Yeah, let's do
starting in December?
let's do December, yeah.
And then we meet
2
the
hours.
second Tuesday.
Yeah, third,
We're on the third now, right?
no. It started, if you look at the minutes, it was starting in December, we'll do
The minutes say second Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Second
Yes, the minutes
Tuesday.
say second Tuesday.
Yeah,
Presume?
yeah.
Because we're on, I think, the third
We're
right
on
now.
the third right now, it's
Yeah.
moving to the second because Board of Commissioners will start meeting on the third.
So, I mean, I can't meet the 20th. So I'll be
We
in
are
town.
scheduled for the 13th if we go in December. The 2nd is the 13th.
You wanna do it? Let's have it on the second or the,
Yeah,
Yeah, is that what we decided?
yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
right.
Let's see my calendar. I think I'm good.
So then going forward, then it's gonna be the second Tuesday instead of the third.
Okay. Until
And it'll
11.
be 2 hours.
Yeah, let's do it for 2 hours. 'Cause I don't think we finished an hour and a half later.
No, I think it's better to buffer any more time and end early than
Yeah.
to go over.
Yeah.
So December 13th for 2 hours.
And that's at Village Place next month? Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that then. All right, let's adjourn at 10:49.